So what is it going to take to get you and me to sobriety, to sober thinking, and to sober living, regardless of whether it's my emotions, whether it's a relationship, whether it's grief, whether it's a loss, whether it's an upheaval in my life, whether it's a trauma that I'm furiously trying to find a way to live down or, sort of like put away somewhere in a corner of my life, even though that's not working too good. I'm trying to do that. What is it going to take to get me to sober living? What's it going to take? What is going to take me there? And the first thing out of the box is that getting in, how a bunch of people, I'm sure it's nobody in this room, but I've heard a rumor that some people with their car, they don't ever really think about when is the last time I changed the oil? When is the last time I changed the filter? When is the last time I did any kind of maintenance whatsoever on my car? When is the last time I got my tires rotated? You go, what do you do with your car? They go, I drive it. That's all I do. I don't really do anything else with it. That's what I do. It's like I had an opportunity to see a house about a year and a half ago that it had, it was the people that bought the house, it was a rental house from the get-go. So the people that bought the house never lived in this house. So they bought it purely as an investment. They had no attachment to it whatsoever. They had never lived there. So they didn't really know anything about it. So when I saw this house, it showed you what a house looks like after it's been lived in, but in no way maintained for several years. It's like cars. If you do that to your car, sooner or later, something's gonna happen, right? You can just hope to walk outside, get in it, and drive, but eventually it ain't gonna be like that. One of the problems is the perception that, nothing really's gotta change except in my life. For my life to be better, what's gotta really change is my circumstances. I don't know how many ways to say this, but the deal is this, is that your circumstances or my circumstances are not the problem. Like in the big book, I love this phrase, and it goes, it sets you up great. It goes, well, anytime in your life that there's anything going on, I'm paraphrasing, but there's anything going on, it's a really big deal, and you're really not sure what to do with it, and it's upheaval in your life, and it just seems like there's all this stuff going on that you don't really know what to do with. Could be a relationship, could be money, could be sex, could be a million things, but whatever it is, when all that is ruckus is going on, the big book goes, there would be a disturbance. We would call that a disturbance, and the disturbance ultimately lies within me. Man, the first 27 times I read that, I hated it. I was like, oh, no. You don't understand. Let me tell you about my circumstances, right? Let me tell you what's happened in my life. Let me tell you all the junk that's gone on. Let me tell you how bad it really is. Let me tell you how much stuff really sucks. Let me tell you what's really wrong here. Let me tell you what she, he, they, it, whatever. But in the end, there's only freedom. There's only freedom when God gets through to you and goes, right, but see, the thing is, the disturbance is with you. It's not your circumstances, it's your heart. It's not your thinking, it's your heart. And the first issue of the maintenance thing is, you're not going to like this, but you kind of like got to realize that you just can't get in and drive. You can't jack yourself up and go, well, I've got this thing in my life. It has these I go through these difficult periods. It's kind of like the equivalent of it emotionally. If you were going to tie it to a chemical addiction, the equivalent of it would be like binge drinking. You know what that is? Binge, anybody ever done that? It's like, no, I never heard of it. It's like, yeah. Well, let me explain it to you. Binge drinking is like you get to Friday at noon. You go, the week of work is over. I declare it to be over. It's noon. You start drinking at noon. The next time you realize you're not drinking, it's Monday morning, 8 o'clock. And you haven't had a shower, I know this has never happened, but let's just say it did. You haven't had a shower, you don't even know where the weekend went, and you're like schlepping off to work. It's kind of like that emotionally for us, right? We want to believe that somehow we can just trudge our way through whatever circumstances in front of us, because somehow if we work hard enough, think long enough, are wise enough, whatever, we'll just figure it out. But see, this program of recovery is man, the deal is you can't just get in and drive like that. That's like an emotional binge. That ain't going to do it. There's things to think about. With a car, it's stuff like belts. You're like, belts? Cars have belts? Oil? Coolant? When you're doing this drive of sobriety, you got to get ready for a long drive. And you got to realize that where you're going, you have never been before. It isn't like you go, sometimes you go, my car is acting up a little bit. Have you ever done this? My car's sounding a little weird. If I was a mechanic, I would hate hearing that. You pull into the mechanic and you go, look, my car is, I do it. My car is making a weird noise. Oh, I've never heard that. It's making a weird noise. What kind of weird noise? Well, it's just kind of like weirdness. It just sort of makes, right? But see, we don't really, we think about, well, if I drove my car and something happened, I would be close to my friend's house and it would be okay because I could go over to their house and it would be all right. But see, this drive I'm talking about, sobriety, you're going where you've never been before. So you cannot rely on the tricks of the trade that have accommodated the stuff in your life that have gotten you sick, because somehow you've known how to do it before and you'll be okay now. Because sobriety, learning how to live in a sober place, everything about living that way, thinking that way, feeling that way is different than anything you've ever known. As a matter of fact, you don't know anything about it. Neither do I. You don't know anything about it because it's brand new. None of us have ever heard of it. Sometimes people they go, well, so-and-so, my friend, or my sister or brother or my husband or wife, they went to this treatment center. Right away, the automatic blame is on what? The treatment center. It's got to be the treatment center, right? They went there. They were there 4 weeks. And they didn't fix them. They came out, and you're not going to believe it, but they used again. What? I don't even understand that. It's you should be more surprised if they didn't than if they did. Amen? Because if you believe that you're gonna go on a little vacation for 4 weeks, and you're gonna go to the equivalent of driving from here to, Asheville or somewhere, you're gonna have a little time in Asheville, look at all the art galleries or whatever they got over there. I think that's a weird city, but anyway, just saying. So, but then you come back here and everything's supposed to be good. It's it ain't gonna be good. To understand sobriety, we all have to realize we have never been there before. It's the exact same conversation, honestly, that Jesus had when he was talking to these guys that he wanted to have follow him around. They were called the disciples. Those guys had no earthly idea what Jesus was trying to do with them. They had no idea where he was going to go. They had an idea of what it was going to be like. In their mind, they thought they knew what Jesus was supposed to do, right? They thought they knew. They thought he was going to get famous. They thought all this stuff. Jesus completely went in the opposites of what they thought he was going to do. And sober living is exactly like that. It is thinking in a completely opposite way of what you have ever known before. You cannot possibly know where you were going. And to do that, you've got to look at all this preparation for the long haul. Number one, despite how much you want to, do not be your own mechanic. I want to dedicate this to Stealth Andy, It's pretty good. Stealth Andy. Man, you have 1 year in, right? Do not become your own mechanic, amen? Keep trusting people in the fellowship. Keep trusting meetings. Keep trusting Jesus. Keep trusting the literature. Keep trusting this program, amen? Do not become your own mechanic. Do not become your own Mr. Fix-It. You have the tools you have needed to get to 1 year, but to get to 2 years, you're gonna need 10 times more, amen? 10 times more. 10 times more. Like, don't go, I got 1 year, I'm gonna pick up a wrench now, and I'm gonna fix this thing myself. And if I don't know what to do, I'll bang on it a while, and it'll be okay. Well, it probably won't. Do not be your own mechanic. Number 2, maintenance. Take care of your physical self. Amen? Take care of your physical self. How are you sleeping? What are you eating? Are you one of those people that's got an iPad in your face until the second you go to bed and you wonder why you can't sleep and you're waking up at 3 a.m.? Take care of your physical body. You know, your physical body has been damaged by drugs, alcohol, stress, too much sort of a riotous mental state in your life of some kind of an obsession, an eating disorder, just some kind of obsession with something that has had a hold of your life, that has had a hold of my life. And listen, it has done damage to our physical bodies. It has affected our nervous systems. It has affected our levels of anxiety. It has affected our heart rates. It has affected all kinds of stuff in us. One of the pieces of maintenance is I got to learn to take my body seriously. See, what happens is when I'm in the middle of my compulsion, I'm already on the run from what I believe are larger than life emotions. Amen? And all of my energy is going into maintaining my compulsion. Amen? And maintaining my being on the run. What is it like when I'm no longer on the run? I now have some tools to be able to understand how to deal with my emotions. Now, after a long time, I can attend to my physical body. Take care of my physical self. 3, understand that codependency works against my health. Codependency works against my physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. If you even think you might be, could possibly be, on the off chance there's a wild idea that it might be true, that you might have a hint, like a pinch of salt, of codependency in you, get your fanny in the men's codependency group or the women's codependency group and save yourself a truckload of anxiety. Go to Al-Anon meetings. Go to ACOA meetings. Go somewhere where you're going to deal with your anxiety that's built up in you because you're in charge of the world. Next. What? Sobriety changes both my sense of worth and my sense of meaning. Like, I've got to figure out how to live in a sober place, I've got to learn how to become a learner again. I'm not going to naturally, go to a treatment program or come to recovery at Cokesbury and just sort of sit here and by osmosis, my self-worth is going to go up. Do you want to know a very simple understanding of how to increase your self-worth? I'll tell you what you don't have to do. You don't have to go and buy, you could, but he won't really tell you all that much. You don't have to go buy a bunch of Tony Robbins tapes, I can tell you that. Here's what you can do though. You can recognize one thing about you. One thing. Tonight, regardless of what is happening to you, how you are feeling about yourself, what you have completely screwed up, what you're on or what you're doing, Jesus has already died for all of you, including everything I just talked about. He has already set all of those broken parts of you free tonight. You might not be living like that, but he's already done that. Amen? That's already happened. That's already accomplished. That's already finished because of his shed blood, because of his death, and because of his resurrection. That is a done deal. You might not be living in it as a done deal, but baby, it's a done deal. That's where worth comes from. And meaning comes from a realization that meaning isn't me just trying to get through one more day and survive by being on the run from what's really dark. dogging me. Meaning means I have a real purpose to my life. I actually am free, and I actually am seeing what God really wants to do with me. Amen? Because now I'm realizing God was never 7 million miles away from me. I was 7 million miles away from God. God never left me. I bolted on God. God never told me I was worthless. I told God I was worthless. And guess who told you you were worthless? That would be the enemy. Guess who loves the idea of getting you out on a road trip and trashing your road to sobriety? That would be the enemy. Guess who was never, ever going to give up on trying to take you out? That would be the enemy. Andy, you have 1 year. This is the year the enemy is coming your way. Amen? I mean, I want you to know that. I'm declaring that. I'm telling you that. That's the way it is. And you got to stand behind the shield of Jesus every day, all the time, realizing that the enemy is never going to quit, and realizing also that Jesus is never going to lose, ever. Amen? Maintenance takes you to a place of satisfaction. There's two people in the Bible that tried to find satisfaction. There was a guy, David. He tried to find satisfaction. He was a famous king, big warrior. People loved him. People hated him. He loved God. He had all kinds of problems emotionally. His number one emotional problem was he had a lust for what he just believed he couldn't have. Ever been there? He had an affection for expectation. He had an affection for expectation. And those expectations of what he wanted in his life made him sick. And he went through several rounds of recovery with God until he finally got it. But he was dogged by those expectations. He was dogged by never being satisfied in the heart. By never, you know that feeling? By never being satisfied in the heart. And then you have this guy, Paul. David, pretty lavish life. Eventually lived in this really nice castle and stuff. Had a kingdom, had all kinds of subjects, could pretty much get away with whatever he wanted to get away with because he was the king. And then you have David, so no satisfaction in David. Then you have Paul. Paul, from the day Paul met Jesus, he experienced nothing but suffering. From the day Paul met Jesus, he experienced nothing but suffering. And yet Paul was completely satisfied. Paul was completely satisfied. It must be true then, right? What I was starting off with. It must be true that circumstances do not produce satisfaction. Amen. That must be true, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Paul, David. David, dogged by his expectations. Paul, satisfied in his suffering. It must be true. Here's how Jesus says you can do it. You got to know one thing about the vehicle that is taking you to sober living. One thing. This is what it is. I mean, the maintaining piece keeps taking you here, right? It keeps taking you to what I want to talk about, and that is, this is Jesus. Jesus basically says in order for you to have satisfaction, you got to know who you are. You got to know who you are. For most of us, we know who we are based on our accomplishment, based on our failures, for a lot of us, based on what other people say about us, based on what other people think about us, based on the way other people are reacting to us, based on how much money we have. That's how we think we know ourselves. We consider all those capacities to be success. Jesus has this completely different way. He's like, do you really want to get to know yourself? I got a simple way for you to do it. Here's what it is. I am the vine. This is out of the Gospel of John, the book of John, first book in the second half of the Bible. I am the vine, and you are the branches. A branch, like me, is never going to be the vine. I'm just never going to be the vine. It's like, My human nature, going all the way back to Adam and Eve, is I want to be what? Vine. I will never be satisfied as long as I try to know myself as the vine. Never, not ever. As long as that's the way I identify myself, that means I see myself as God. And if I see myself as God, I'm going to stay incredibly sick. I've got to come to an understanding that the best possible way for me to live is to be the vine. Is to be the branches. I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I remain in you, which he says I will, you will bear, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you came from. It doesn't matter what's happened to you. It doesn't matter what you did. It doesn't matter what you didn't do. If you remain in me, you will bear much fruit. Here's the second part to that. Apart from me, apart from you being a branch on me as the vine, you can't do anything. Step one, man, step one is this piece of John right here, isn't it? We are powerless. You decide you're a vine, you're dead. You decide you're not a branch, you're dead. You decide you're a palm tree, dead. You decide you're a pear tree, dead. You're not. You're a branch. You're a branch. You're a branch. You're a branch because Jesus shed blood for you to be a branch. You're a branch because that's what health is. You're a branch because that's what security is. You're a branch because that's what peace is. You're a branch every day because when you get up, that's what freedom is. Amen? You're a branch. If you do not remain in me, you are like a branch that is thrown away and withers. That's us, man. That's compulsion. Such branches are picked up, thrown into the fire, and burned. If you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. This is to my Father's glory that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples. As the Father has loved me, so I now have loved you. Remain in my love. Here's the question. You want to be a branch or do you want to be a vine? Your choice. This altar is open for prayer. We're going to have people in the care room to talk more about this if you want to. Thank you so much tonight in Jesus' sweet name. Amen.